and welcome to Tuesday News Day, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. One of the biggest issues that has plagued the Oculus Quest 2 seems to be getting fixed soon. Spoilers, you still have to use a Facebook account though. Some more CES, AR, and VR news, and so much more, so let's just get right into the news. So I'm all about supporting VR developers, and I think we all should be in that same mindset. VR as of now is literally carried on the back of these indie VR devs that have put in a ton of work to make the industry what it is today. The cold hard fact is that VR game development just isn't quite as lucrative money-wise as typical flat screen game development, assuming both are somewhat successful relative to their audience. There's just more people to sell to on the flat screen side or mobile side, right? So this has led to a lot of VR devs having razor thin margins, having no budget essentially for marketing, leading to low sales and more razor thin margins. Every copy sold is extremely important when it comes to a VR game, which is why you shouldn't pirate VR games, just saying, but also why Viveport is changing its revenue split to an 80-20 split, with the majority going to the studios, versus the industry standard 70-30 that Steam uses. If you buy a game via Viveport or use Viveport to play a game, then the developers just get a little more money. This is especially good because one of the reasons we see so many Oculus exclusives is that Facebook offers incentives to the developers for becoming an Oculus exclusively developed game. So you can potentially make more money or get a better deal for your studio by releasing on only one platform, which sucks for everybody, to be honest. So other platforms becoming more competitive, offering better deals for developers on the PC VR platform is a good move for the industry as a whole, no matter which way you look at it. Now, I'm not a huge user of Viveport personally. I own most of my games that I play on Steam, so it doesn't make much sense for me, but if you're new to VR or you don't own many games, then Viveport is kind of a crazy deal. You get a huge assortment of games for a Netflix-like subscription. I don't want to talk about it much more. I might make a video about it later, but in general, I'm just happy to see better incentives and revenue splits for VR game developers coming from the platform holders. Steam and VR have hit all-time new records in 2020, although that's really not much of a surprise. Statistically, if you didn't get into VR in 2019, then 2020 was most likely the year that you got into this thing. More than 1.7 million new users in PC VR throughout the year. Not too bad, actually. Revenue is also up 71% compared to last year, and overall session playtime has increased by 30%. So more people are getting into VR more often, and they're doing it for longer and spending more money. That's all good growth if you ask me. Every New Year's time, I always geek out over how much VR has grown over the past few months, and this year's no different. The numbers are bigger than ever, and they're always growing. I have no reason to suspect that next year will be any different, but the VR industry still has a long and hard road ahead. For now, though, we can celebrate that 2020 was definitely a good year for VR, despite almost everything else kind of sucking. And speaking of things getting better for VR and VR users, Oculus has announced a huge update to Quest and Quest 2, and how the Oculus library and account system works entirely. In my opinion, the way accounts are set up for Oculus right now is just a mess, especially if you fall under a certain category, which I'm sure is a pretty sizable group. The problem really comes around when you have a single headset or two headsets for an entire family, so you share the devices. I know this is a problem for my own family even. They have a Quest and a Quest 2, but there's more than two of them, and they've bought all these games, and they don't know which account to have on which, and you can't play the same games at the same time, obviously, if you have the same account across all headsets. It's just a pain in the ass, especially for people that don't usually mess with tech all that often. Not to mention, there were scares at one point about even getting banned by Facebook over using the same account over multiple devices. Although don't worry, Facebook has said they will not ban your account, but the worry was still there. And it's about time because Oculus has this huge update, and it's gonna make everyone's lives just a little bit easier. Next month, an update will drop for Quest and Quest 2, allowing for multiple user accounts on the same device, now allowing up to 3 secondary users on the device. Another huge thing here is the addition of a feature called app sharing, which will allow any secondary profile on the headset to play any game purchased under the primary user's account. Nice thing here is every profile on the account will have their individual save files and game progress, so everyone in the family doesn't mess up each other's Journey of the Gods playthrough. This feature will be coming to the Quest 2 as an experimental feature in February 2021, and the original Quest will receive the feature at, quote, a later date, end quote, whatever that means. I should also mention, yes, of course, every other secondary user needs a Facebook account as well, so it doesn't fix all of the issues. But the future is bright for a better experience as consumers. More features will be coming soon, like bringing the ability to share your games to other devices as well, but that's further in the future, Facebook says. Also, according to Facebook, with these changes coming soon, the company aims to, quote, help grow the VR community, promote Oculus Store apps, and help prevent piracy, end quote. And I can agree with that for the most part. It's becoming a better system that's better for consumers, but at the end of the day, you'll still need to use Facebook accounts and you're still at the will of Zuck. A pretty huge step in the right direction for both Oculus Store and its users, but there's still more Facebook can do to make their platform more friendly. Actually, a lot that they can do. Starting February 13th, all new games on the Oculus Store will be required to have this new feature enabled, so I wouldn't worry about your games not having this. But now it's time for a meme break! Look, some people ask me, how do you make Tuesday Newsday? How do you research all of these articles? Do you have a team of people that gather things for you, or whistleblowers? And no. Let me tell you the absolute best skill that I learned from college besides learning how to shotgun a beer faster than all my friends, and that's becoming a really, really good Googler. But sometimes there are bad articles that bleed, and I can smell the blood of an article making false claims about VR from across the internet. And here's one of them. This honestly isn't the worst article in the universe. It's not saying anything particularly bad about VR, and right when things are looking pretty okay for the guy, I realize that he has no idea what he's talking about. I'm not trying to gatekeep, but I didn't know that the Valve Index has standalone capability. You guys hear that? There's actually been an XR2 in this thing the whole time. We just didn't know. Maybe Valve forgot to put a battery in there, or it wasn't in the notes, but hey, the Index is a standalone headset, and I love it now. The black levels are crazy, even for an LCD. Like, it's just pitch black everywhere. OLED dudes will love this. Look, do a little bit better fact checking. The whole thing is funny either way. But now, back to the news. I meant to cover this last week, but I kind of forgot. Better late than never though. Some crazy new mechanically shifting display technology is coming from Facebook that supposedly makes an image look extremely clear. Now, here's the thing. A ton of really amazing technology comes from Facebook Reality Labs. There's no argument to be had that some of the most advanced AR and VR research development is coming from Reality Labs. And actually, Oculus being directly underneath Facebook Reality Labs was one of the few direct positives from the whole situation of Facebook essentially absorbing Oculus last year. We have to deal with all of the huge negatives, but this research tech is easier to integrate directly into Oculus AR and VR projects that we'll actually see now that they work together. But back on these displays. Like I said earlier, Facebook Reality Labs and the University of Arizona have developed a display that shakes extremely fast at around 120 Hertz in a tiny little circle. Now that sounds really crazy, and it kind of is, but I'll break down why Facebook is doing this and how it actually works. Although it gets really complicated, so I'll be simplifying for time's sake and brain's sake. Most of us know about screen door effect. That's the effect that VR headsets have that allow you to see individual pixels on the screen, and it makes things look pretty bad. And you lose a lot of fine detail, especially when looking at things off in the distance. Now, you can solve screen door effect a few ways, and one of them is just to increase pixel density or resolution, two things that we've already done, and that's the reason why almost all new headsets are LCD panels instead of OLED nowadays. And that's because of a tighter pixel arrangement. The pixels are tighter together, giving you a display with less screen door effect, with the downsides of having a greater color scale. And of course, we've seen resolution increase by a lot. The only problem with more resolution is more pixels means it's harder to run. This idea from Facebook was to move or vibrate the pixels extremely fast in tiny amounts until the gap between pixels appeared to be filled. So testing movement in two ways, one with redundancy and one without, yielded some pretty impressive results. Here's one example. First, a normal headset looking at this car. As you can see, this is the same display with the same screen door effect, yet it looks better. Better way to put it from Facebook themselves, quote, with appropriate application of mechanical motion, screen door effect can be qualitatively reduced, end quote, which is pretty interesting. RotoVR says it perfectly here in their article, which you should definitely read up on if you want far more details, but basically, you're getting way more out of a display for less, a better image that isn't so hard to render, which Facebook knows standalone VR is the future, so the more performance that they can get out of cheaper hardware, the better. Another really cool thing that I personally want to talk about is a pretty amazing looking augmented reality heads-up display from Panasonic. I think most of us remember Google Glass, and I was extremely excited for Glass when it was announced. Like, how could you not be? The promotional footage for it was insane. But it was ahead of its time, both in terms of hardware and socially. And now, only 7 years later, Panasonic has announced the AR Hub using their Prism technology at CES. Super high resolution, eye tracking, 4K resolution, all in all, it looks really cool, and it's a system meant for cars and dashes that automatically puts things like navigation right in front of you down the road. And this sort of technology could just start trickling into cars before we know it. But now it's time for question of the week. From Filthy Nice 88, how do you feel about doing 2 meme breaks to cover up for breaking my heart last Tuesday? Well, in case you didn't notice, there was no meme break last week. I'm sorry. I honestly didn't think anyone would notice, and then the video kind of popped off and people noticed. Whoa, wait, the video popped off and there was no meme break. Maybe this is saying something. Either way, this video had a long meme break, and I don't think it was particularly bad. And I do think meme break is very important for Tuesday Newsday, but sometimes I'm just not feeling it. And and I can only post so much cringe before it's even cringy for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, sorry for breaking your heart, and I'll do better next time. And that's question of the week. Make sure to leave your own below in the comment section. I may just answer yours next. I also wanted to mention, if you want more VR content from me and gameplay and stuff, you should check out my second channel. It's pretty awesome. We just hit 10,000 subscribers, which is huge, and we've got a lot more coming on that channel this year, so check it out. Also, I will be streaming today on Twitch, so stop on by and say hey. My community on Discord is growing every day, and it's likely one of the absolute best and biggest VR communities out there, so you're only missing out if you're not in it. I want to thank all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Atomali, Benji, Biz, Caution, Coco Fox, CPCJ79, Debonair Fab, Furtrap, Fusion Oak, HCG Randon, KR, Moyasu Entertainment, That Brock Guy, Very Evil Shadow, Zale, and Naku. I couldn't do any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.
Love where I belong.